Hi, my name is Breyden Chong, and it's a pleasure to be part of the 2021 FCAT undergraduate conference. The presentation I've put together is on the topic of default settings on Facebook and how these defaults steer its users in ways that benefit the company. This topic is going to be particularly relevant for those who have Facebook accounts of their own or are perhaps interested in potentially changing defaults for other types of software. First, I wanted to provide you with a very simple analogy for thinking about defaults. Think of defaults as looking at a menu from your local restaurant and it has X, Y, and Z on it. But then at the bottom of the menu, it has a little sentence in fine print that says something along the lines of, ask your server if you would like to hear about the other meals we offer. Your restaurant wants you to pick meal X, Y, and Z because they are, in fact, the easiest meals to make using the cheapest ingredients possible. But they provide this option for the customer to ask for different meals so that the restaurant doesn't appear as though they have a limited selection to choose from. And so this leaves the customer having to go out of their way and ask something outside their menu. But really, this is what Facebook is trying to do with their defaults, right? They are essentially spoon feeding you choices related to your account that ultimately benefit them. And for the most part, they let you change those choices, but you'll have to find those options buried in the settings somewhere. But of course, that's a rather simplistic way of looking at defaults. We can go one step further and see they have ties with an ideology called neoliberalism. Now, without just giving you the dictionary definition, think of neoliberalism with regards to Facebook as something that is commodified. If you think about the platform, Facebook essentially wants to offer their users the freedom to express themselves online however they wish. Now, keeping their users happy creates better conditions for their users to likely reveal more and more data about themselves, which is particularly lucrative for Facebook's advertisers. And that's conveyed through Facebook's infamous message of having a quote-unquote open and transparent platform. Today, there are over 2 billion user accounts registered on Facebook. I'd like you to keep that definition of neoliberalism in mind as we go through the slides, as I'll have it on the bottom of my presentation, as this is going to be a common theme as we work through some examples. Which leads me to, how did I carry out this investigation? What was my methodology? Well, I knew I wanted to have access to a large untampered data set, and so using my own Facebook account to look at defaults would actually defeat the purpose. And so I actually had to start fresh with a brand new Facebook account to actually examine what those original default settings were. One of my goals was to make sure to give Facebook as little data as possible. And so I entered my name as a pseudonym under the name John Doe. It actually wouldn't accept John Doe, to my surprise, actually. But anyways, that's how I went about gathering my data. For the use of a new account, I was able to dig through the Facebook profile and all its default settings. And so the first finding I'll share with you was that if I were to add friends, all my friends would be publicized by default. Nearly all of my demographic information would be publicized in my profile, in fact. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, once said back in 2010 in one of their press conferences that the default is social, and this would soon become an emerging norm. And so it's interesting how this statement is very much reflected by the platform in an effort to make almost everything visible. You can see in these images that all my likes for movies and music, for example, are set to public. Where I live is set to public, and so forth. And this is basically Facebook's business model. It's predicated on a collection of data to sell to third-party advertisers. When your personal information is made public, it makes it easier for them to essentially curate a marketing profile on you, which of course translates into easy dollars for the company. And so there are other little tactics that Facebook does to collect as many data points on you as possible. What I found was that Facebook's defaults are actually set up in a way that maximizes how it can actually keep you engaged, keep you constantly interacting, keep you constantly being inundated on the platform. Your notification system by default is frequently riddled with red badges. And it's not just the in-app notifications that you dismiss and do away with. When you provide Facebook with a phone number upon signing up, text limits are already preset to unlimited, meaning they have the option to text you whenever they want, at discrete intervals whenever they please. So up to this point, you might even recall your own Facebook account that Facebook, might even recall with your own Facebook account that Facebook does in fact provide you with opportunities to change your defaults for a privacy checkup. But really the ways they present them to you are very limited in scope. I actually found that this checkup does not go through all of the important privacy settings. Here, they literally just want you to present you with an option to determine whether you want your email shown, the friends, for instance, and your birth date, which problematically is publicized by default. So really, this checkup is not the answer to your problems. The user still has to take it upon themselves to basically stick their nose into the settings and change every little detail to their liking if they so choose. I'd like to end with a discussion of my last finding, which is perhaps the most problematic thing I discovered in my investigations. And that's when you want to decide, that's when you decide you're done with Facebook and actually want to delete your account. And so I'll walk you through it. First of all, you'll see that the default is set to deactivate instead of permanently delete, which are two entirely different things, right? Deactivate only makes sure your Facebook profile inactive so that the data is retained. And Facebook can still do as they please with the information you provided to them up until this point. It's worth noting that even when you do select permanently delete account, they tell you it takes up to 90 days for the deletion process to complete. So deletion is not even something that's made immediate here. Which leads me to touch on, okay, what were the main takeaways I'm trying to communicate here? For one, it's the fact that the user will have to go great lengths to prevent Facebook from data mining you on its so-called open and transparent platform. You, the user, are ultimately left with options that are conveniently for Facebook buried in the settings, which make it a hindrance to change. When I first did this investigation, when I did this investigation after, I actually found myself retroactively going back and changing the defaults of my own Facebook account. In fact, every time I need to make an account for an app or something, the first thing I do now is actually untick the options that help minimize the amount of data it collects on me. Remember, these problems are not just exclusive to Facebook. Often you'll find software that collects usage data by default, which could be anything really, and they will tell you to create that it will create a quote-unquote better experience for you. At the end of the day, Facebook is a business that lives and dies from the data it collects. It's their bread and butter. It's how they generate value, and they will go great lengths to extract as much data from passive users who really can't be bothered to take a second look at the defaults presented to them. The platform is not really free, right? It still profits off of the information we feed to it and steers us via defaults to accomplish its own ideological ends. And with that, thank you for listening.